Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with
Drunken Master Paul.
That's right, and today we're going to do a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time.
And a lot of people have actually been asking for off and on over the years because we keep mentioning that we used to work at Sierra together, and that's how we met.
Yep.
And then we get people saying, well, you know, how did you meet and how did you get started at Sierra and what was it like then?
What happened to Sierra, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we decided we're just going to hang out here in the Metal Jesus Man cave, drink a couple of beers, and just talk about those glory days.
All right, let's take a look.
Phew! Sierra!
People always ask about how we got started at Sierra because I think it just seems like this big mystical thing, right? Like, how did that happen? How do people get a job at a game studio? And I think both of our stories are completely not the norm, or maybe they are.
I don't know. That was normal for us back in the day.
Right.
But getting a job back at a game company back then, way different than now. You got to remember that back then, that was in 1995 is when I started at Sierra, and you started a few years before, right?
Yeah, I think 93 technically.
Okay, so this is when, you know, video games were just kind of coming into their own, and so wasn't. I don't think you could get a degree at the time in video games.
No, as a matter of fact, my backstory is that I went to school for computer science, learned how to program.
Okay.
And back then, in 1989, 1990, Excel wasn't really a thing.
Right, it was Lotus 1, 2, 3 at the time.
Yeah, and so actually, when you went to program and you actually wanted to make money and perhaps put food on the table, you learned to program for accounting software. Right. So I went for 8 hours a day, and 1 to 2 hours every single day was doing accounting.
Oh my God, I just cannot imagine that.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not great with numbers, but I was like shocked because the game industry was, you know, it was there, but it wasn't like something that professionals did.
Right.
And so for me, I guess we'll get into how I got started, was I was sitting around with my roommate and, you know, I had kind of odd jobs. I worked as a bar back and stuff like that. But I knew how to program. Anyways, I opened up the Seattle Times.
Okay.
And there
was a newspaper thingy, right?
Yes, made out of paper. Yes, wow, analog. Analog.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't. You have to reboot those very often.
No. They're pretty sturdy actually. Yeah. And so there was an ad for Sierra Online and an accounting position. Okay. And I was just like, well, I know who Sierra is because I was a big gamer, obviously. I was like, well, I can do accounting. So basically, that's what I basically. Also, at the time, I had a full-color scanner and printer, which was kind of unusual at the time.
No kidding.
So I scanned their logo,
and
then I printed off my resume, but I had the Sierra logo on my resume as it was branded. Okay. And also, I color printed the envelope that went in the mail with their logo on it. I got a call back less than 24 hours later.
Wow.
And they're like, who are you? Do you want to come work for us? And so that was how I got in the door. I basically did accounts receivable. And at the time, the history of Sierra is that Sierra is an old, I mean, they basically got their start in Oakhurst, California, Coarse Gold, very small towns in Northern California, and they're having problems hiring people. You know, basically they were the biggest employer at the time, and so they were having a problem. Like, they're growing and they needed more developers, more marketing people. So they basically moved up where Microsoft was. Okay, and they basically had heard about the Pacific Northwest, so they were moving their corporate headquarters over, but they weren't. They were just starting that process, and the accounting department was the first to go. So they bought that building over in Bellevue, Washington, and there was like 3 or 4 of us plus an IT guy named Jeff. And
is that Jeff Bianchi?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so the whole building was empty. There was no furniture. There was nothing. And there was only the accounting department in a corner of like the 3rd or 4th floor.
Oh, I didn't even know they owned that whole building because we were just on the 3rd floor when I was there.
Yeah.
But they had the whole thing.
Yeah, and so
3rd and 2nd floor, really.
And so it was us doing accounting. And then slowly Jeff built out all the networking that was needed for the time, and they started moving people up, hiring people. And so I remember one day going down the hallway, and it's just like, oh my God, there's all these people here. You know, there's like tech support and marketing, and there's Brightstar, and then there's, you know, all these different developers down there. Like Al Lowe's team was on, I think, the second floor or something.
Yeah, the developers were a floor down.
Yeah. anyways, so that's how I got my start, is in accounting, but I knew that I was going to want to go somewhere else, somewhere more fun.
Okay.
And I started seeing these tech support customer service reps going, man, these guys got action figures on their desk. They got long hair. They're wearing rock t-shirts like I am, because I was the only guy in accounting who basically had a full tan, long hair. Well,
I was going to ask if you had the hair at the time. Or
I did until I got a girlfriend who made me cut it.
Oh, the things we'll do for love.
I know. Yeah. But and I work rock t-shirts every day. I listen to metal at my desk, and that's how I got my job at Sierra. And that's kind of where about the time you came in.
Right. Now you knew about Sierra when you applied.
Yes,
you're a gamer. Well, for me, I had known about Sierra, but I had no clue it was there.
Right. Yeah.
Because I had been playing. I played one game, and it's actually this one that you happen to have right here, Space Quest 4. Now, I had gotten this, it was on 5 1/4 floppies.
Right.
And was playing it. It might have been which I never do. I don't condone piracy in any way whatsoever, unless you're drunk and about to spend your money on beer. And then I was working in Bellevue, driving an espresso truck.
Yeah.
Called a Van Go Espresso. It's a small van. Go Espresso.
Yeah.
So I was going around to the different industrial parks. And slinging espresso in the mornings, and I was going to Eastgate Park with Sierra, and people would come out, and I just started hearing, Sierra, like the game company, and I go, yeah, I go, get the hell out of town, man! I had no clue Sierra was up here.
Yeah,
and that was in the summer '95, and so I started sucking up to the tech support manager, Doug. And I kept feeding him free coffee so he would like me, and kept saying that if there's ever an opening, and tech support was always hiring, so that's how I got my foot in the door, as it were, with feeding espresso to the manager.
And the thing about Seattle, especially back then, is that you know how you hear those stories about like the ice cream man when you're younger, like you'd hear a little bell down the street and all the kids would run out. Yeah. Same thing, except where it's office drones, right? They're like, ooh, I think the mocha guy's here. My espresso guy. They just run downstairs to get that 10 o'clock espresso.
Oh yeah, I had to be on time too, because if I wasn't, there's people that are going,
yeah, I got a meeting.
Where were you? Stay longer. Lines out the door. In fact, funny side stories. After I got the job there at Sierra, a few months later, the espresso truck was still coming by. So I actually trained the guy that took over, and we had I think it was a fire drill or something, or the fire alarm went off, and so we had to evacuate the building right as he showed up. And so suddenly there's 300 people out there, and they're all in line. The line was miles. Curvature of the earth, you couldn't see the other end of the
Oh,
line.
I bet.
And he was freaking out. So I actually jumped back in the van.
Oh, really?
And
started slinging
mochas again for him. And I actually stayed out there for a little bit to get that knocked out. But yeah, that's how I started. I sucked up to the tech support manager, and that's kind of how you got in those days. There wasn't a LinkedIn, there wasn't anything like that.
There's nothing like that.
So you had to be clever, and I love the fact that you put the logo on the envelope.
Yeah,
because back then I don't even think there was email. You couldn't send an email in.
Not
at the time.
It would be very new. I don't think I personally had email.
I didn't have email till after I started at Sierra.
That's true, because I remember at Sierra, I do remember distinctly someone showing me like an IRC chat that had the first MP3s.
Yes.
But MP3s were so big that they literally would break them out into multiple files for one MP3.
Right. This is sections.
Yeah. Although it reminds me that at Sierra, I think we had that was the first time I ever had a network at a job. It was new.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, to tell a little story here, I think it's so funny. The internet at your desktop was brand new. Having a network that you could do email and things like that was brand new. And of course, comes with that is the person who doesn't quite get that you shouldn't surf porn at work.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yes. We're not naming names here.
We're not naming names, but
there were a few.
One day he wasn't there. He was fired. And, yeah.
It's so new and exciting. Look what came up.
Your IT guy can always tell what you're doing at work. Always.
Oh, well, I got a story on myself on that. Because I was having fun learning Photoshop, which also came on a floppy disk. One floppy disk back then.
Okay.
Amazing.
Wow.
And so I was having fun playing. Actually, you have it here as well. Leisure Suit 7.
Okay.
And so I was taking some of the pictures because in the Larry series, if you did certain missions, you would get Easter eggs of basically naked chicks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was photoshopping them into different poses and stuff. And I don't know if I was stupid enough to send it out via email or something, but I got it out to kind of anonymously to several people that I thought would
What was this? The naughty versions of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I fired that out. And the next thing I know, the IT guy was at my desk looking over my shoulder. So, did you send that out? And I just, total Academy
I don't know what you're
Award
talking
mode.
about, sir.
Totally Academy. No, what are you talking about? Well, somebody sent that out, and it had a power bar in the shot from a laptop. I knew I had a laptop. I just bought my Toshiba, which I still have.
Okay.
And fortunately, I had just turned that off.
Oh.
I didn't want the battery thing showing anymore, so I'd switch that off. And but I hadn't when I took the screenshot.
Huh.
And so that went around. But that put the fear of IT into me forever and ever and ever. To this day, I remember that. Oh, that'll be funny. Hey, Paul. Yeah? You send that out? And then he kind of gave me that look.
Yeah.
He was like, he knows.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know he knows. And he knows I know he knows. So it was kind of like, this was your warning shot, buddy.
Yeah. Everybody gets those eventually.
But it was
Yeah.
Larry. Come on. I wasn't like...
Well, yeah, at least it was,
porn,
yeah, exactly.
Something we published.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, one of the things I always tried to tell people that's kind of also a little bit unique about Sierra at the time was that, yes, we were in customer service tech support, but we ended up doing a bunch of random stuff. And that was what was really fun about it. So, I mean, you wrote for Interaction magazine.
Yep.
Not necessarily this issue, right?
No, not in that one. I thought I did. I thought I did Earth Siege. I played Earth Siege to death. It was one of my favorites. But no, I wrote a bunch of articles for that. And also, we were the testing department. Yeah, we tested the betas. We wrote the documents on it.
Yeah.
On all the specs and everything on all the games. Because we were a team of, up to 70 people at some point, and they would just use us because they probably thought we weren't doing anything. You're just answering phones.
Yeah, and so the way that our department worked was it was broken up into different specialities. So, for instance, I was in the sim queue, which covered baseball, front page sports, football, which I hated, NASCAR, which I loved, but then it also included a lot of the Dynamics games, almost all of them. So the Earth Siege game, the Star Siege, A-10 Tank Killer, Red Baron 1 and 2. I didn't get the Willy Beamish because that was you, right? You were the adventure queue.
No, actually, I started, of course, the entry-level queue.
Okay.
The ELTs. And
which I didn't have to do.
You didn't have to do.
I moved right above that.
Right to the top. Well, the entry-level queue was interesting because that's where the new hires would go.
Yeah.
And it was actually a system that I used up into my last job as a client services guy because it was brilliant. You basically have a bunch of people, you hire them new, and they answer the phone, and then you get a great big thick book. And every basic question is in there. And so, hi, Sierra, how can I help you? I've got a problem with this game.
Yeah.
Open to that game. What's the problem? Go down the list. If it's there, here's the answer. If not, let me get you to an expert. Boom, boom,
Right.
boom.
Okay.
And it was a great system just to knock down the easy ones.
You called it the sneeze guard.
Yes, we were the sneeze guard.
Yes.
For the rest of the company.
Which I thought was so funny, yeah.
And we would take care of all that snot, and so you guys didn't get hit by it.
Yeah.
And the callers didn't appreciate that as much as maybe they could have, and that was primarily because we did not have an 800 number.
Oh.
People called, had to pay for that call.
However, though, we did have an ace in our pocket, and that was that Sierra at the time, I still can't believe this to this day, would give you your money back no matter what.
That was brilliant. That saved my ass many times.
You could go buy the game at CompUSA, and if you took it home and couldn't get it to work or whatever,
you didn't like it.
If you just didn't like it, you could send it back, and they would give you a refund. And so every couple weeks or a month, we would get shipments from customer returns,
right?
And literally it'd just be this boxes and boxes of every game you ever wanted,
right?
And so we had them all.
The vulture bin.
Yeah, that's right.
The vulture bin.
And what I would use it for is for trades. You did too.
Oh, I did.
So the brilliant thing is that you'd have 6 copies of Outpost or Space Quest 4 or whatever, or Leisure Suit Larry, King's Quest, and then what we would do is we would call or email Activision, EA, LucasArts, and go, dude, hey, I'm Jason from Sierra. what do you got? You know, and then we would do master. You were the master of the trades.
I was, because not only was I doing it with game companies, I was in with Thrustmaster.
Oh, that's right. You had the good stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah, the Thrustmaster joystick company, they were out of Beaverton, Oregon. I mean, I know, Thrustmaster
really?
out
Were
of
they?
Beaverton. Thrustmaster in Beaverton, yes,
didn't
it's a
realize they're
joke that writes itself.
So local. That's
Oh
cool.
yeah,
I
in
didn't
fact, they tried to hire me.
know. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I got, and it was easy because we were tech support guys, right? So
Yeah.
we would just call tech support,
Yeah.
you know, or email tech support and say, "Hi, I'm Paul with Sierra. You know, we'll do some training. Got a bunch of stuff. What do you got?" And so we were talking to our people.
And the cool thing about Thrustmaster in doing that kind of trade is that, you know, we're talking back in the day of flight sticks, and these things were designed to be bulletproof. They were serious controllers.
Yes.
And also to more to that point, there was a huge revolution of controllers going on at the time. You'd have flight sticks, the Gravis joysticks, the force feedbacks, all that stuff, and they were not cheap. And so, you were getting boxes. You were just giving it away.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. After because I started and the entry level queue. What did I go after? I didn't go to the adventure queue. I went to the education queue.
Okay.
Education queue first, and then I did the adventure queue a little bit. I didn't want to do the adventure queue.
You didn't?
No, I didn't, because it was all about walkthroughs and solving puzzles.
Yeah, I know.
It was a pain in the ass.
And everyone who calls that thinks that the game is broken when really they just can't figure out the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, they're frustrated, and because of that they think it's broken.
Yeah,
really.
and it's not. It's
No.
and Sierra said we can't give hints on that because they had a 1-900 hint line that
Right.
they made money off of. And so you tell people that and they get pissed. He said,
Yeah.
or you can fax
Right.
and or you can pay $9 for a hint guide, kind of thing. So it was a little dodgy there. I
Yeah.
mean, that would never fly now with the internet, and you don't need it anymore because, you know, you guys have a community out there on some
Yeah.
board or Facebook. I can type in anything and get the answer I need.
But it was really nice to be able to tell people, hey, if you're really unhappy with this, send it back to us.
Right,
That
right.
was always the ace in our hole. It's like, if you got somebody really pissed, hey, so sorry, send it back. And often they'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to send it back.
I really want to get this working.
Okay, then listen to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Believe me, I don't want my call times to go up. But it was brilliant
Yeah.
to be able to do that for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
It was an amazing way to de-escalate.
Also, you mentioned Q&A. I'll never forget, the developer came to me with a burn of, it was either Earth Siege or Earth Siege 2. I forget which one. But it was he basically was like, okay, I think we're pretty close to shipping this. You know, give us one more Passover. And I'll never forget this. He's like, how much RAM does your computer have? I was like, 4 megs. He's like, ooh. He's like, well, this is going to need 16. I was like, 16 megs.
Megs.
I was like, I've never talked to a person who has 16 megs. Like, that exists, but nobody has it. And I remember his face. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, this needs to be like support 4 megs, 8 at the most.
Yes.
16 if you're rich, you know. And I just remember he's
It
like,
was $100 a meg.
well, it was like, I mean, the other thing too about Sierra, which I really appreciated at the time, do you remember that they had that program where you could buy a Micron computer, remember,
Right.
through Sierra.
Right.
So Sierra wanted everyone to have a gaming PC, and in order to do that, because these were $3,000 computers, Sierra would basically buy it, and then you would take the computer home, but they would pull money out of your paycheck every month.
Ding your paycheck, yeah.
And
That's how I got my laptop.
that's how I got my first Pentium 100, right?
Ooh.
Which was an expensive computer.
Yes.
And it was really funny because I remember sitting in my apartment. My bed is a mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
I have no furniture. My car is a piece of crap that I have to push through intersections because it dies all the time. But I had a $3,000 computer and I loved it. It was and it took me
Priorities,
years
man.
to pay it off, of course, you know.
Oh my God.
But but even that, it was like, that was the top of the line. And you know, at the time, again, being that QA department, just kind of like, it was like really wild. Like, I could barely get the game to work, and they were trying to go gold in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
It was shocking.
That was one of the really interesting things about that time and something that there are other things you think about now, but back at that time and place, computers were just coming into their own and games were just coming into their own.
Oh, absolutely.
Which means that computers weren't being designed for games, but games were driving the computer industry because you didn't have to upgrade to 16 megabytes of RAM
to run
Word.
Yeah.
To not even run Photoshop or anything like that, but in order to run the next NASCAR, remember when NASCAR 2 came out?
Yeah.
You had to have, the video card, and you had to have enough RAM, and you had
CD
to have all this
audio
stuff.
and all this stuff.
I remember somebody, and I wasn't in the SimQ, but I don't think it was you, it was somebody else telling me that they had somebody on the phone before NASCAR 2 had come out. He had bought the machine to play it.
Yeah.
And at that time it was like a $4,000 or $5,000 machine.
Right.
Just to play NASCAR
fans
2.
are hardcore. Even that's probably no surprise.
Yeah.
But
But back then, even with the game.
yeah, people would drop thousands of dollars to play that one game. So let's talk about some of our favorite games of the era, because I think that a lot of people love to know what those are. So, so just like up to top of your head, we do have like we have a pile here. We got some over there.
A bunch of stuff over here.
Yeah.
I'm reminiscing in my head. Well, for me, the Earthsiege series.
Okay, good answer.
That was the one that, I mean, other than the Roger Wilco games, which I started loving at Sierra until I heard about the company. And honestly, after Space Quest 4, I didn't really care for them.
Yeah, I agree.
They kind of,
I agree.
Kind of tanked. But the Earthsiege series, Earthsiege 1, I actually couldn't get to run on my computer.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
for
pretty,
the life
pretty
of me,
rough.
I couldn't get enough RAM. Boot disk.
Yeah.
So Earthsiege 2, though, I played through multiple times at work. In between calls, I would play it on a keyboard too.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a joystick at my desk at the time.
What?
It was
all these trades.
Well, this is pre-trade. This is early on. I hadn't taken over yet.
Yeah.
But when I got my Thrustmaster trade, and I got the throttle on one side.
By the way, we have a fly flying around here.
Yeah.
So.
I'm planning on snacking on him later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see my ninja skills can get it. Trying to stay focused here.
Sorry.
I'm gonna blast a beer across the room.
I know.
But once I got my Thrustmaster set up with the throttle and everything, that was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And then that one and the Aces series, Aces over the Pacific and Aces over Europe.
You're absolutely right. I love those.
Favorites.
Dynamics made, and I know I've said this before, but I do think the Dynamics made some of the best games for Sierra. They're consistently so good, and even when they got into like the adventure series with like the Willy Beamish, Rise of the Dragon, they just made so many great games. That's why it sucks that they're not around.
Yeah,
but for me too, it's like the Earthsiege games I absolutely love, and also too. I think people forget that the Earthsiege series is like, I mean, it's like a world because they had Earthsiege, Earthsiege 2, Starsiege,
which I've got stories on that as well.
Hunter Hunted was part of that world officially.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And so was Tribes,
and also Cyberstorm, which because Command and Conquer was a big thing. So Sierra's like, we got to make a real-time strategy game or a turn-based strategy game, and so that's what. And Outpost, not one of my favorites, but
but Outpost 2.
Yeah.
Now, Outpost is such a wonderful story at Sierra. Outpatch, we call it. It's the game that you could never finish. Out of the box, it was kind of a simulation thing, and you couldn't finish it. It had a bug in it. And did they ever fix it?
I believe so.
I know they never got the monorails.
No, they did because there was an Outpost 2.0.
Well, Outpost 1 couldn't finish. Outpost 2 you could.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Outpost 1.
No, Outpost 1, I believe they finally patched it to the point where you could finish it.
And what was
they kept promising monorails. That was the thing.
I know. And what was really embarrassing, actually, that was not a good year for Sierra because we were starting to ship things because we needed to make quarterly profits or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Outpost was unfortunately, at least from what I've heard, was one of those games where it was shipped because of that reason. But the reason why it bit us in the butt is because all the artwork was on the CD. And so customers got this game, it wasn't finished, and then they're looking on the disc going, well, you guys were so close, like, it's right here.
Right.
What are you doing? And it didn't help our case.
No.
That was a rough one.
Yeah, that was really tough working at Sierra, especially in support for the holidays, because nothing. It'd be a ghost town in there right up until Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And then Christmas Day, we all worked Christmas Day because the phones lit up.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody got a new computer and they got games for Christmas.
And of course, it was the era no one could get them to work.
Yeah.
So, little Johnny is so disappointed. He's crying, and I remember we had a meeting, and Doug, our boss, was like, "Sorry guys, like enjoy Christmas Eve, but you're here tomorrow."
Yes, and
we were pissed.
Yeah, and for that entire week.
Yeah, no sick time, no nothing. If you had a doctor's appointment, it doesn't matter. You got to be in there. It was, but I mean,
the way it was.
It was the way it was.
Yeah, to give you an idea of how busy it was, I think our team had 30 or 40 people, actually about 50, including because we brought in extra people for the entry level. With 70 lines coming in. We had a 2-hour wait, and all the lines were busy.
Wow.
People were getting busy signals on that.
Yeah.
And so you would wait. By the way, you're paying for this if you're calling long distance.
Yeah, that's true.
Paying to be on hold for an hour and a half to get to the entry level, who would tell you they can't solve their problem, and turn to the next. Sure, we can give you your money back. Yes.
Yeah, but that also illustrates just how popular Sierra was at the time.
I think we're the biggest game company on the planet at the time.
We were, and I mean, literally, I've seen the statistics. We were bigger than Electronic Arts, because Electronic Arts, while it was popular on consoles, they had almost nothing really going on necessarily on the PC side like we did.
Right.
Plus, we not only, like you mentioned, we had productivity software, we had education software, and it, like Brightstar, the Castle of Dr. Brain series,
all the kids games,
kids typing, all that stuff. We had, what was the landscaping one?
Land Designer.
Yeah, and then we had Print Artist.
Yeah, Print Artist. They've been around forever. It was I
think we bought them. It's Davidson or something like
yeah.
that, right? Or
and that was okay. Very, very low level printing, desktop publishing kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the Land Designer series and all that came in towards the end. I don't think had CUC bought us before then, but that was the time they were trying to branch out and they were becoming very, very corporate, and that's the time when they were really pushing, especially the holidays, to get stuff out the door for the holiday rush and would ship broken shit.
Yeah, and we experienced that quite a bit. Another one is King's Quest VII.
Oh my god, yeah.
A game that basically
missed him.
Basically shipped. It was playable, but it was very, very buggy.
Yes,
and it had a patch, I believe, on a floppy disk. So the game came on a CD. But
shipped with a patch.
Yeah, with a patch, and hopefully you still had your floppy drive.
Yeah.
You took a call, didn't you, once, where someone calls up and they're like, "Hey, I've got your CD, but there's something weird on it."
Yep. I've got 2 stories on that, but the one you're talking about is, I think it was NASCAR, and I wasn't in the sim queue. Anyway, a call on a game, and they are talking to him. They said, "Okay, every time I load the game, Windows starts up."
And immediately you're probably thinking, sir, put down the bong.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, you're doing something different. So I put it in your game. Okay, I walk him through the steps. Okay, put it in the drive. Okay, close the drive. Okay, great. Now, no, it just came up again. He said, it says, "Do you want to load Windows 95? Like, do you have Windows 95? And I go, "No, I got Windows 3.1. Okay. And I tried everything I could to fool him.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do here? And he said, "Okay, tell you what, can you send me that disc?" And sure enough, it was our game, but it had Windows 95 on it. So the duplicator had screwed up somehow.
I so wish we had a copy of this. Can you
imagine?
imagine?
I so wish I'd kept that.
Oh my god.
But I think they took it away from me to go to the duplicator and say...
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And by the way, how many of these are actually out there that we need to worry about?
Right.
That we shipped a full version of Windows for $39.95.
That's right. It was a good story, and of course, I not only took that back, but I comped him a game, for his trouble.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we got so many weird calls like that in support.
Yeah, we did.
And you hear the urban legend stories about the cup holder, right?
Oh well, yeah. Back then, yeah. They were kind of new, but
yeah.
Yes.
So I broke the cup holder, or whatever. Well, Shannon took that call.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she took that one. The cup holder call where they put on and broke it. One of the stories that I love telling is a guy called with one of the kids' games. I think it was Incredible Machine.
Okay.
And he's trying to play it with his daughter, and it doesn't work. It won't load. This disc is screwed up, or the game is screwed up. Blah blah. He's being kind of snippy with me. He said, "Oh well, can you look at the disc? The disc is fine. I put it in there. Blah blah blah." So finally, I got him to open the drive, and I said, "Could you please check the disc for scratches?" And there's this pause. And he goes, "There's peanut butter on it." And what? And so what had happened was his daughter was going to play games, and she had an open-faced peanut butter sandwich, and she got the disc and put it in, she slipped and put it on and dropped it right on the sandwich. And she was so embarrassed that she just quick put it in the computer and hoped nobody would notice.
And meanwhile, you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and then he's, I'm telling him what the problem is. And, no, it can't be that because he had just played this, etc., etc.
Oh, man.
And his daughter was so embarrassed that she thought she could get in big trouble. So, so he had to clean up his CD drive was completely shot because it was full of peanut butter.
I'm sure. But again, people don't realize that while Sierra was a big company, it wasn't really internally, like, it didn't feel like it, you know, because
No.
it was just like running by the the hair on fire by the seat of our pants.
Oh, yeah.
Always, you know.
Yeah. What was a conglomeration of really creative people?
Yeah.
You know, just like Dynamics and the Andromeda guys. They would get really creative people, and Al Lowe.
Yeah.
You know, so they were bringing in these super creative people that would not work in a corporate environment, just letting them go, and then doing their best to kind of get that out the door.
Well, that's how I ended up in a game in you as well. Oh, you gonna kill the fly?
That is not a fly. That's a big honking beetle. There's a beetle the size of Montana. This is how the horror movie starts, by the way.
I turned the camera to you, but
I'm hung up on cables. Clean up your cables.
I can just flick it.
Yeah, it's not the first time you've said that to me. So I just catch it here and throw it outside. Got it.
It's like a ninja. That's why I keep him around. Yay!
Yay!
Did I mention that we're just doing this off the cuff?
And I'm wearing pants, you can tell.
Yes.
Ah! God damn it. That's a big beetle.
I know.
I think it ate your dog on the way out.
There's some good stuff in here.
The thing about being on the phones is, you were there before me.
Yeah.
And so I was learning and everything. And something I loved about Jason was, by the time I got there, he didn't give a fuck.
Really?
No, he didn't. You were my role model because everyone else would like stay after work and do extra things, or play Quake with the boss because they were sucking up to get a better position. He at 5 o'clock, boom, he was out the fucking door. I'm done. Boom, and he just didn't take shit from anyone on the phone either. Nope. That's the way it is, sir. Sorry. Too bad.
Well,
he did it in a good way, but
I have a way of telling people, and I've accepted this now, is that I can tell people bad news and they don't get necessarily, like, they don't take it personal.
No.
I'm not picking on them. I'm just being matter of fact.
yeah, very Jack Webb. Very. That's the facts, man.
Yeah, and when it comes to PCs, it's not personal. The Compact Presario doesn't hate you.
Compaq hates you, but the machine
Compact may, and it may be a piece of crap machine, but yeah, absolutely. It's just, these are the facts. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I remember more than once Doug hinting that, the way to get along with this company is you stay after work and do unpaid work. Stay here till 5:30 and do documents.
That's right.
And
They
stuff.
expected us to stay after work
Yeah.
and not get paid. I
And
was just
people
like,
who do that were the ones that are going to get the promotions. I'm like, no.
oh my
But
God.
I did anyway because I didn't know any better. And
But it's funny you mention that because I do remember one of my bosses going, "Wow, at 5:01 you're halfway down out the parking lot." Now, I was like, "Yeah, because that's my time."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember you saying exactly
Yeah,
that.
like, I love you guys.
Yeah.
This is a great. I love all the stuff we do here, but you're cutting into my time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're my total hero. You're total hero. Cause
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Because I was a young suck up at the time, and so I was just staying and doing stuff and trying to get the next thing.
Huh. Yeah.
The cool thing about tech support, though, is because we were the cool people and we were available and we were willing to do stuff like that, which is how we got into some video games.
Yes, that's true. I know. So, an email came, and they were looking for someone who plays guitar and has long hair, and I was like, "That's me."
I had long hair at the time, but I did not.
That's
play
right, you
guitar
did. That's right. And then basically, they asked us to come in on a Saturday, unpaid, of course.
Of course.
But
pay for any of that.
but it
We
was,
barely got paid for a job.
dude, I found my W-2 last night.
I saw that. I saw you posted it. Oh my god.
I found all of them. Actually, all of my W-2s, I just kept
Wow.
them. And my first one is the company. The address is not Bellevue. It's actually Oakhurst.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Okay, start your bidding.
Yeah,
Little Jesus for W2.
I have proof I worked there. So yes,
I saw you
And-
blurt
and-
out your.
my social security number,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that I didn't make very much, and it's right there on the W-2. But anyway, so I showed up on a Saturday afternoon. They picked a marketing person to play keyboards, a couple other people to fill out the band. We didn't even know each other. Hopped into a van and drove out in the middle of Eastern Washington.
Yeah, that's a horror movie. Sorry.
Oh,
right there.
I know. I was just like, on the way there, it was
You're
awkward
doomed.
too, because you don't know any, because we weren't part of the same group at work, and we're supposed to be this band. It was awkward. We sucked it up, but we basically went out there and did kind of like Beatles-esque stuff where you kind of walk in sequence, and you pose.
yeah.
And the whole premise is it's a horror game, and the band plays music videos that give the player clues.
Right, that was Shivers 2.
Shivers 2.
And the band was, give me a second, Trip Cyclone.
Trip Cyclone.
Trip Cyclone, right.
And it was just one of those things where if they needed people to help out, you take from within. You also were the voice of me.
Yes, I was going to say, do you remember your character's name?
Only because it's in the Wikipedia article. It's Doug.
Nope.
Oh, I don't know.
Dave.
Dave.
I don't remember. Dave Lofton, is it?
Yeah, something like that.
Because I did his voice.
Yep.
And I didn't know it at the time. I was doing some voiceover work, and I was in another game. I was in Phantaz 2.
Oh, you were?
I was in Fantasy
Oh, that's
Row
right.
too.
In an actual on-screen role.
Yes, and so they needed voiceover work, so I just went into the booth and I recorded a voice for an answering machine message. And I had no clue. We didn't know what the characters were.
Wow, that's so weird.
And I didn't know until, maybe 10, 15 years ago when I was looking on IMDb and found my name and looked it up as Shivers 2. And there's Dave, and then there's Jason with the same credit.
They didn't even ask me. It's so weird. It's just
No,
like,
you were just. I was just a voice. You were just a face. And so,
and Rebecca's van is in the game
that's
in
right.
3D, and also our dog at the time, Fletcher.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just so weird the way that all came when we worked together, and I was his voice.
Also, we just had, as a side note here, we had some serious characters working at Sierra. I was just thinking of our department. We had a guy, Steve,
Steve hit, yeah.
who would walk around with his fingernails filed and carry the Satanic Bible with him.
Yes, he would.
And I'll never forget one time we're riding down the elevator, and Ken Williams is in there. Mm-hmm. And he's just looking over at Steve like, he's trying to...
Do you work for me?
Yeah, he's like, do you work for me, or did you just wander on off the street? Like, should I fire him if he is working for me? And he was just like... Another funny thing about Steve is, that we should probably say, is that I live fairly close to Sierra. I live literally in Bellevue as well. And so every couple months, I'd like to have a party at my house. And on a Friday, I'd be like, hey, everyone's invited. Come on over. Hang out at my house. We'll have music, drinking, partying, whatever. And Steve hit, inevitably, one, he might get there before me, and he'd already be drunk.
Yes.
He'd be at my door, drunk. Like, dude, it's been 20 minutes.
Right.
Since
Leave work at 5. He'd be there immediately,
yeah.
hammered.
And then he's then he'll pass out, and then as 5 to 6 o'clock rolls around, people are stepping over him
I
to come
remember
into my
that.
house.
Yes. Remember, he's at the door just leaning back with his shades on.
Yeah.
Which is how we did tech support, too, by the way.
Yeah.
We'd
yeah.
walk by in the morning, and he'd be in his cube, and he'd have his shades on, and he'd either be like this, or with his head on
Oh,
the
he's
the
always
desk.
hungover.
Yeah, and
Always
still
messed
doing
up.
the job.
Yeah, yeah.
You listen to him, and it's like, you couldn't tell from a customer's perspective. This guy is
A
rat
true
hammered.
pro.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
In his DNA.
The epic parties.
Now, something
They're pretty legendary.
something I was going to do for this video, and I didn't make him do it, was this rat bastard would show up, and any new person at the party had to do the line of death, which was 7 shots.
Yes.
So
I'm not really sure why I thought of this idea, but it was a thing. Yeah.
We were made of magic and rubber back then.
I know.
So he would line up 7 shots, and they were gnarly, like tequila.
Well,
and
no.
Mitch.
It alternated between peppermint and spearmint schnapps or something like that.
Oh my god.
So it was fire and ice.
Oh, so it wasn't just random?
No. It was just alternated. So you get a little bit of the cinnamon and a little bit of
my
the
God.
Yeah, and it's 7 of them.
And the reason I don't know this is I stealthily avoided the line of death.
Yeah. Oh my god. And again, 7 of them as you're walking in my house.
Yes. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, but it pretty much guaranteed a pretty good party, though.
Oh,
Although
yeah.
a couple times, to be fair, oh my god, I'll never forget this. A very small guy.
That would be Doug.
That'd be Doug.
Yes. If you're still alive, Doug.
Yeah, good on you, because you almost died that night. He comes in the door, probably weighs 90 pounds.
Oh, no kidding, yeah.
And he did the line of death straight off the gate. Real trooper. More power to him. Later on, somebody comes to me, because it's my house, of course, and they're like, hey, you might want to check on Doug. Really? Why? Oh, he's in the bathroom, and he's curled up, and he's shivering, and he doesn't look very good. I'm like, okay. So I go into the bathroom. Sure enough, yeah, he's wrapped around the toilet, sweating.
Yes.
And he may or may not have puked, I don't remember. And we couldn't get him to move. Like, he was messed up.
Yeah. One bathroom. Pee around him.
And that's what people did.
Yeah.
So the whole night, girls, boys, whatever, you walked in there, you did your business, you just right there in front of them. And it was hilarious is that hours later, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, he just comes out. Mm-hmm. Hey, good party, and leaves.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. See you, dude. See you Monday.
So I think he died and his soul left, and then like the devil took over.
I know.
And he's out doing something now.
There's-
Or he's watching this video right now, and suddenly he's going to have like a telephone flashback. Ah, you bastards!
Those parties were epic.
Yeah.
They were good parties.
Another character we worked with, and not in our department, but one of the writers for the games was Lorelei.
Oh,
Lorelei
Shannon.
Yeah.
So, very famous. Who I think she originally started off on either the Laura Bow or also one of the early King's Quest games.
Yeah, Laura Bow, I think. What's the other one?
I know. I should probably know this, but she.
Yeah, we probably should look this up for the video, but preparation.
Yeah, please.
But she wrote Phantasmagoria 2.
Yeah.
And is into horror and all that stuff. And it's she had a great sign on her door that said "Every day is Halloween" in Lorelei's office.
And this is actually pretty cool because Phantasmagoria, the very first one, was a Roberta Williams adventure game. And the reason why it was significant for many ways. So Roberta Williams created the King's Quest series, which is a very family-friendly, it's like Disney.
Yeah.
But she wanted to do something that was truly adult.
Yes.
And this is also at a time whenever full motion video games were really starting to come into our own. So Sierra went all in on the original Phantasmagoria. I mean, it's a traditional gothic style horror game.
Right.
And it's got some really cool deaths and stuff like that. But the reason why I'm bringing it back to Lorelei, because Lorelei is much more, if Roberta Williams is Stephen King, she's like Clive Barker.
Yes.
Very much more disturbing, way more creepy, way more kind of twisted, quote unquote. And so I really got excited about Phantasmagoria 2 because I knew it was going to be something interesting, scary, weird, bizarre, and it was.
Yeah, it was. Did a really great job.
Yeah, she really did.
And one thing about Phantasmagoria, the first one, is that it was super edgy for the time.
Yeah.
It came on 7 CDs,
Yes.
so that was a tech support nightmare.
Yeah.
But the complaint about it was you could finish it too quickly. There wasn't a lot of game playtime in it. I
Right.
think people were finishing it like 20 hours. So the problem with that, with the Sierra return policy,
Oh, right.
was people would play it and then return it.
We had a ton of returns. And I don't even think there was an alternate ending. I mean, the ending on it is kind of rushed anyways, if you remember.
Yeah.
It's not great, but yeah, there's no reason to keep it.
Yeah, none at all. And
We had
so
tons of those.
to the point where we had stacks of these things. We were taking like a fort and destroying them.
Yeah,
so
that's
we would just
right.
throw them in the trash and be good games. But yeah, do you want another Phantasmagoria? No,
No.
I don't. And now I'd love to have one.
I know.
Because I don't have a copy anymore, and you do.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was in the second one. That's the other game I was in.
Which they shot on location, at least that part, at the Weathered Wall, which
Yeah,
is a
the-
club in Seattle.
Yeah, down on 5th. It's not there anymore, but
I saw some cool... I got really drunk at that club once.
I think everybody did at some point.
It was a good club.
But they shot that as a movie.
Yeah.
Now, I've done some TV and movie stuff since then, and so yeah, it was a set. They had a director, they had camera people, they had sound people, effects, the whole thing. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Could you tell me if...
Want to play? I could make you scream with pleasure.
Okay.
Aww. Amateurs.
So let's talk a little bit about... Everybody wants to know what happened to Sierra.
Well, for me, I started there, and then that right at the heyday.
Yeah,
And
me
then
too.
soon after, Ken Williams sold the company.
Yeah.
And he sold it to a company called CUC.
Right. For According to the Wikipedia
According to
article.
Wikipedia, like 1.5 billion with a B dollars.
Yeah.
So they sold it, and that's kind of started the downward spiral.
Yeah, because he was only there for about a year after.
Yeah, as the CEO or the COO or whatever position,
Whatever.
kind of guiding it, and then he was done.
Yeah.
because it was CUC, then they changed it to Sendent.
Yeah, so CUC merged with another conglomerate. Or, conglomerate, is that the word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it right the first try.
Yeah, which basically created this massive corporation that had Sierra in it, but it also had Seagram's, the drink.
Right. Yeah, it was the parent company of Seagram's, right?
We also had in there hotel chains. I don't know if it was a Hilton, but it was somebody like that.
And the entertainment book was in there somewhere too.
Yeah. Those big, thick entertainment books was all under the umbrella, and Sierra was just a slice of that.
Right.
But the reason why this is really important, it seems crazy today, but you got to remember back in the late 90s, this was the thing to do. AOL merges with Time Warner. You're thinking, what does that have to do with it? Sony buys movie studios and music studios. And in the late 90s, when software and video games was new, that's the next entertainment medium, and so all these big companies wanted to have a big part of that. They wanted to control it. So there's all these sort of power shifting going on, and so that's what happened. Is that they're like, well, Sierra's the biggest.
Yeah, let's snap that.
We got
one up.
$1.5 billion. Let's just do it, right?
Right.
And then merge with this other company, and now we're like this massive thing.
Yeah, and that's, you hear about the dot-com bubble. That was a huge part of it, is the whole acquisition part of it. Is company would just like acquire, and then try to make something out of it and realize they just spent a lot of money for not a whole lot of substance.
Yeah.
Now, with us, there was a lot of substance, but they tried to make that a lot more corporate. They had tried to make it into a money machine as opposed to a game company.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the problems came in with the games, is trying to get them out the door before they were done.
Also, too, Sierra, in my opinion, really struggled with 3D. So we were kind of caught with our pants down a little bit, because you had games like Quake coming out. We did thankfully publish the very first Half-Life, which is a great game, but.
Yes.
But our adventure games, our bread and butter, just didn't really work very well in 3D. We didn't know how to program for it. We tried.
Right.
Gabriel Knight 3 is a 3D game. King's Quest 8 is a 3D game.
Right.
And they're generally considered terrible.
Yeah.
Because,
Red Baron 3D?
well...
Shoot me.
Yeah, I kind of like that one, but but see, Dynamics though knew 3D because they've been doing it for a while. But our adventure games and some of these other things just didn't work, and they were kind of falling out of vogue, So what really brought down Sierra, unfortunately, was that this new mega corporation called Sendent, it was announced like a year later in 1998 or something like that, that they were cooking the books. So they are a publicly traded company, and they were lying about their accounting, and I think, I don't really remember the details, but basically I'm sure it's probably like they were saying, they made a big profit, but they actually lost a lot or something like that. Either way, you can't cook the books when you're a public company.
No, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end. They basically started liquidating everything.
Yep.
They fired the people down in... Sierra still had development down in California.
Right.
Dynamics is down in Eugene, Oregon.
Yep.
And they slowly just started letting it go. I mean, the corporation kind of fell apart.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened to a lot of companies in the late 90s, was people show up and the doors would be closed.
Right.
And that's what happened down in, was it Yosemite? That's the name of the company.
That was the name of the company, but it was either Coarse Gold or Oakhurst. They're two very small towns that are very nice. They're like really close to each other.
Right.
So I think that's why they get used interchangeably.
Yeah. And we talked about The Realm, which was the first online multiplayer 3D, or not really 3D, but graphic game. And that had a small but very passionate following.
Yeah.
And it was...
People paying all the time to play it.
Yeah, we had, I think, 20,000 people in there paying their $10 a month. Well, that's not chicken feed.
Yeah.
And so when they closed Oakhurst, they just locked the doors. And that's where the servers were. And because at the time I'd gone to OneNet, which was their spin-off online thing, which became Flipside through one of these mergers. I'm wearing my Flipside shirt today.
Oh, there you go.
And so I get a call from one of the moderators, because I was running the online community at OneNet, so as the moderators all knew each other, I get a call, actually a phone call, saying, I can't get in, because she was remote, couldn't get into the servers.
Oh.
Because they just went and they shut the power off.
Of course. Hey, if you fire people and you're not paying them...
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I told my boss at the time, John Williams, who was running Ken's brother, running OneNet, said they shut down the Realm, and he's like, "What?" Because he knew. And so I was on the next flight down there.
Oh, you were?
I had to fly down there, get them to unlock the doors.
Oh, really?
Get the people who were running it, call them, get them back on the payroll.
Of course.
To go in, light these servers back up, and get that running. And so that's how I wound up taking over and running the Realm for a few months until we sold it to Codemasters. Yeah, it's a classic example of a company buying something they don't understand.
Right.
And they were just buying stuff that was cool at the time and not understanding how it works. And then when things go terrible, you think, well, you can just make it go away. And it's just not that simple.
Yeah. And it was a real bummer for me. Although, to be fair, I saw the writing... Well, I shouldn't say I saw the writing on the wall. I left before then. Because at the time, the tech industry was definitely doing really well. So there was lots of opportunity out there. But of course, I love the stuff that they did. I love my time there. It was fun.
You and me both, man.
Yeah. The funny thing, looking back, it feels like high school or college. It
really does.
Like it was work. We didn't have any money. It was hard sometimes, but you met awesome people. We had great parties.
Oh, holy shit, man. We can go on for hours and hours and hours about this, reminiscing.
It's true. It's true.
Unless you guys are drinking, too. Talk amongst yourselves. We'll just keep talking about Sierra, but... Man, it was a great time, and I look back at Sierra as kind of my first career when I first started working. Because I had jobs before that, but that was the first time I was like with a company and had met my people.
That's true. It was my first quote unquote corporate job.
Yeah, and I don't keep in touch with anyone from my previous jobs.
No, not really, not like that. I feel like we grew up. We were in the trenches together.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a super good time. So
yeah, but also too, though, I mean, to be fair, Sierra, the name continues on, and I think that's why it confuses people. Like, what happened to Sierra? Well, everyone that we know and love that worked there, unfortunately, was let go. But they sold the name, they sold intellectual property and all that sort of stuff, and that's why you occasionally see it today. But really, it was owned by a French company, then it was owned, I forget, Havas or whatever.
Havas and then Vivendi.
Right, and then now I think Activision owns it as of today.
I think so.
But,
And who owns Activision? Who knows? So many conglomerations.
Right.
It might be the Metal Jesus Corporation owns everything now, and you're just not telling me about it.
We should buy it back.
Yeah, we should.
Let's kickstart it.
Hang on a second. I think I got $1.50 here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it became a publishing house, and the name carries on. So that's cool that it's still there.
Yeah.
And actually, King's Quest is available on Xbox 360.
Well, they just remade it with the blessing, or not remade it. Sorry, they rebooted it.
Yeah.
With the blessing of Ken Roberta Williams. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping to see more uses of those games because they would lend themselves so well to the iPad.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was with OneNet, with the French company, of course, in Europe, they were talking a lot about us building games, and this is a crazy thought, because people are going to be playing games on their phones.
No.
We should start building small games that would work on people's phones. And this was in 99.
Really?
Yeah.
Way
so
early.
We were way ahead of the curve. It's just that they didn't know how to manage a company. So we could have been Apple.
Yeah.
But oh well.
Yeah. Well, we could definitely go on and on about our stories.
Yes.
We've only just touched these. You mentioned Interaction Magazine. We could do a whole episode on that. So, and many more of our kind of memories of specific games and stuff. So
I'm only one beer in here, dude. I mean, we could got at least another 6-pack or more.
So we'd love to know what you guys thought of this video, and if you guys would like us to do another series of these. Also, too, another thought he had was bringing on other people.
Yeah, a lot of the people that were there at Sierra, we could bring them in and we can all talk.
Probably really embarrassing stories about me or you or...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did the line of death, too.
Oh, yes.
So awkward.
All right, guys. Thanks for reminiscing with us about Sierra, and we'll talk about it again sometime.
All right. Take it easy.
Cheers.
I want to give a huge shout out to my good bud, Drunken Master Paul, for helping me do this video. He remembers so much more about all the details than I do, and so it was awesome having him on this episode. Also, a huge shout out to my wife, Rebecca. I didn't get to talk about her in this video, but we met there. It was pretty awesome, and she's got some great stories too. Also, I want to give a shout out to Pushing Up Roses. I'm using a bunch of her footage in this video, and I really appreciate her letting me do that. You guys should definitely check out her channel because she is a huge Sierra fan. All right, guys, thanks for watching.